Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Tonight is October 7th. It is Sunday night on Columbus Day weekend 2018. Tonight we're going to be talking about Kazakhstan continuing its gold buying spree. First, let's take a look at the price of gold. Back open again and down at $11.99. That's down $3.50 from the close on Friday. Silver down even more, about 13 cents down to $14.50. You know, a dime's move or 13 cents move is almost 1%. Remember, 14 cents, 15 cents is a 1% move. The market is open tomorrow, but the bond market is not. So Columbus Day is somewhat of a holiday, but not everywhere. Check your local listings to see what's open and what is not open. But the crypto markets are always open. And let's take a look. Bitcoin over the last 24 hours, pretty much flat at 65.68. Bitcoin Cash up about 2.5% at 519. Ethereum at 2.25, 225, up about 1/3%. Litecoin, bit of a spike at 58, up 1%. And Ethereum Classic almost at $11, up 0.37. All right, let's take a look at Kazakhstan. I just finished uploading and should be available soon the In Case You Missed It Top Gold, Silver, and Crypto Stories for the weekend at October 7th. I had a misfire, so I wasn't able to get on at 8, so now we're here at 9. If you're interested, the bulk of that weekend update, or week update, was meant to focus on cryptocurrencies, and it did, but there's about 10 minutes in the beginning about the Kavanaugh hearings. Not much analysis, just a repeat of what happened. So if you're interested in the crypto part of that, you can fast forward to the next 15 minutes or so. But I hope you find the whole thing enjoyable. Hello, Miser. Greetings and salutations, lurkers. He says, all right, let's take a look at the Kazakhstan gold reserves. Now, I've been covering Kazakhstan for about 2 or 3 years now, maybe 3. Ever since I noticed they were buying gold every month, and right now they have been buying gold, I think 71 or 72 months in a row. That is by far. I mean, most central banks don't buy gold at all, but they buy it religiously every month, and that's about almost 6 years worth of buying it every month. Pretty big deal. So I put together some charts. I do cover it every month. Now, the amounts that they buy are not large, but for them they're large because the country it's a large country, but economically it's small. So let's take a look at what Kazakhstan's been doing with its gold. So about 6 years, well, back in January 2015, Kazakhstan had about 195 ounces, and it was way deep in the tables of which countries had gold. But as a result of all this buying, it burst into the top 20, burst into the top 15. So it's a significant player in the, we're going to show you that chart, in the world global gold reserves tables. I mean, it has a very large amount now, comparatively speaking to others. No, that's not the one I want to show you. I got to get the right one. I want to show you through through August 2018, and this will reflect those 70 or so months of buying gold. And Kazakhstan is now a pretty major gold producing country. They've become that essentially in the last 3 or 4 years, the last 10 years, I would say, not the last 3 or 4 years, but they really have increased. They found gold there, they have reserves, and now they're spending time exploiting those resources. All right, so here we see Kazakhstan is now on the big screen, and if you go back to January 2015, 198.4 tons, and then you see a steady increase. That's just since 2015, but they've been buying for even longer than that. And they're at 331 tons. Now that's a decent amount of gold. In August, they added another 4.6 tons. It's typical of them. They have between 3 and 5 tons a month. For those of you keeping track in ounces, that's 160,000 ounces that they added in August. They report the end of the month for the prior month, not for the prior month. So, for example, they just reported at the end of September, and that was not for September, but for the end of August numbers. So at the end of October this month, we will get September's month, but I'll report on those in November. So right now, total Kazakhstan gold reserves are 331 tons. That's ahead of Saudi Arabia at 322 tons, and that's even ahead of the United Kingdom's 310 tons. Now, gold is 42% of Kazakhstan's overall official reserves. Now, overall official reserves are about 30 billion. So they got about $12.8 billion in gold. Hefty amount for a small country. 2017, they added about 40 tons. 2016, about 36 tons. This year, they might add 50 tons. So they are on a pretty big spree here. Now, one of the things that is helping them is that their gold mining production, we mentioned they're a gold mining country. In 2012, they produced 40 tons. 2013, 43 tons. 2014, 50 tons. 2015, 64 tons. 2016, 69 tons. And last year, about 75 tons. So as they increase their gold production, they basically take 50, 60, 70% of that and just slap it right into the central bank. And it's something similar to what Russia is doing as well. You've got that gold mining production. You got a horrible currency that depreciates every year. You might as well convert your domestic mining supply into gold, because gold, people are complaining that the price of gold is down, but against these other currencies, it's actually way, way up. So it is a way of holding on to value. Think of that. That's what gold's supposed to do. It certainly does it for these countries that mine gold, like Turkey, like Kazakhstan, like Russia. And if you don't want to hold dollars or you want to diversify, it makes total sense, especially if you got a gold mine in your backyard. You might as well exploit it. You kill so many birds with one stone. You help the domestic mining industry grow. You have a built-in buyer so they don't have to export. And you help out your own central bank because you're boosting your reserves by buying that gold. And 42% of their reserves are now gold. Way back when, 5 years ago, it was like 15%. So they are really adding to their gold position. Now, on a relative basis, it doesn't mean much in the world that they add 40 or 50 tons, but still, it's indicative what a emerging market country can do to help somewhat back its currency. I mean, they can back their currency even more, and they'll probably get over 50% in the next couple of years, but I don't see that really strengthening the Kazakhstan tenge. What it does do may not strengthen their currency, but it does give them a good reserve position, and we saw that was important for countries like Venezuela or Turkey. If you have to sell, now Kazakhstan is not in that position, but if you have to buttress your finances, you pay down some debt, it's good to have the gold rather than your own currency, because imagine if they were holding their own depreciating currency and they owed money, and that's not going to do them any good. So the gold is definitely good for these countries to mine and hoard in their central banks. Now let's take a look at where Kazakhstan ends up. And I don't have a before and after. I'll show you that at some other time. But let's see where Kazakhstan is in the overall gold reserves by country. The chart I update monthly. And basically it doesn't move much other than Russia's been adding gold, Kazakhstan. Turkey's selling now. They had been adding, but it's interesting to see that there's not much movement in this chart. But here's a chart of the top 20, which is fascinating that Kazakhstan is even in the top 20. I mean, it's in the company of France, Germany, Taiwan, United Kingdom, Spain, Netherlands. I mean, it's up there with major countries with major GDPs, and it really is. It's a tiny country in terms of economics. And But you can see they're ahead of Saudi Arabia with their 331 tons. They're ahead of Spain at 281 tons, United Kingdom at 310 tons, they're ahead of Belgium at 227 tons. And they show no signs of slowing down. So next stop is Portugal. And Portugal is 380 tons. It will probably pass them next year if Portugal doesn't add any gold, which I doubt they will. And Kazakhstan continues at this pace. And, you know, in 2 or 3 years, less than 3 years, they should be in the top 10. Doesn't take much to get into the top 10. India's in the top 10. It's at 573. Russia, as you can see, is going to move in on France and Italy probably in the next year and a half. And they should end up being, they'll probably end up be right behind Germany in about 2 or 3 years. France, Italy, Germany, those countries aren't adding gold. In fact, Germany sells about 5-10 tons a year to make coins, and they don't replenish it. And then you have the U.S. up there at 81.33. At one point, I think the United States had like 12,000 tons before they started losing a lot of it in the 60s under the Bretton Woods Agreement when people were coming to get it. All right. Let's see what we got in the question. ASMR people, finally catch you live. Good to see you live. Working late some nights. All right. Vilnius Karalavicius. M1 supply for Kazakhstan is 500 million. Their currency. Current gold could cover, yep, 170 million, 40% at these prices. Yeah, the gold definitely helps them. There's no two ways about it. It helps them far more than other countries, so it's very convenient for them to have that gold mining production. And it looks like they're going to continue to exploit it. It can continue to grow. And I doubt they'll stop. I mean, they've added gold to reserve 71 or 72 months in a row. And I don't see any reason why, with their management of their finances, why they wouldn't keep adding gold. Bharat is very proud of his country's gold reserves. Cambodia apparently bought 407 tons of gold from Singapore in the last 5 years. Yeah, I think that's not the central bank of Cambodia. I think those are the Cambodian imports. I haven't checked on that, but the country, the central bank of Cambodia, doesn't have 407 tons. So that's probably referring to, that's an important point, though. When people talk about China's gold and they say, oh, China's lying, they have more than 1,600 tons or 1,842 tons. That's the central bank of China. That doesn't mean all the gold in China. So it's very important to distinguish how much gold is in China versus how much happens to be at the central bank. Just like Russia has 2,000 tons at the central bank of the Federation of Russia. But that's not all the gold in Russia, just as any of these numbers are not all the gold in the country. The best one to look at is India. India has 573 tons, the Reserve Bank of India. We know that there's thousands and thousands of tons of gold in India. Some estimate 18 to 22,000 tons of gold in India. Temples, they say 4,000 or 5,000 Indian temples. They say Indian people have like 15, 18,000 tons. Clearly, China too. We know that China mines about 400, 500 tons of gold a year. Been doing so for the last 10 years. We know they've imported 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 tons into Hong Kong, from Hong Kong. And then when the People's Bank of China reports 1,800 tons, it's, oh, they're lying. No, they're not. China, the Central Bank of China isn't China. Yes, there's 10,000, 20,000, whatever tons of gold in China. It's just not all at the Central Bank of China. So these numbers that you're looking at, this is just the central bank. I shouldn't write gold reserve by country. It should be gold reserves by central banks and then the country for which they belong to. Now, the difference is, the only one that's different on this chart is the United States. The United States is different in two respects. One, the central bank of the United States is the only one, other than one other one, I can't remember, some third world country, that is not owned by the government. So, for example, the central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, is an Indian bank. It's owned by the Indian government. Bank of England, all are owned by the countries. The Federal Reserve is not owned by the United States government. It is a creature of statute. It's a private bank that is authorized by the United States. A very big, very, very important distinction. The other thing is that's different. because the Federal Reserve is not a U.S. bank, they hold no gold whatsoever. The gold that the United States has, those 8133 tons, is owned by the U.S. Treasury and held at various locations, the largest of which is Fort Knox in Tennessee. So that gold doesn't belong to the Federal Reserve because the Federal Reserve is not part of the U.S. government. Very important that all these numbers on here, gold reserves, this is gold that's held at the central banks of those countries, and those countries' governments run those central banks. The U.S. is different. The Federal Reserve is private, so it holds its gold at the U.S. Treasury. All right. Let's see. Kazakhstan's top industries? It's mostly mining from my understanding. I haven't checked recently. ASMR people, in a few years, Kazakhstan could go to the gold standard. No reason for them to do that. I mean, you can accumulate gold, and they can have their reserves. They can just keep increasing their gold reserves. But what do you mean by a gold standard? They're not going to back the tenge in a convertible range such that when you buy stuff, you have tenge and you turn them in and you get gold. That wouldn't make any sense. In today's world, it doesn't make any sense for any country to offer gold in exchange for the currency. And the quick answer is why. I mean, the question is why, and the quick answer is they'd be out of gold in about a week. I mean, if I ran trade with Kazakhstan and I got tenge, the first thing I would do is go right back to the central bank of Kazakhstan and say, can I have the gold, please? Because I'm not holding any tenge, that's for sure. So there's no reason for... people get all excited. Well, the country's going to go on the gold standard. It's going to make gold go higher. No, it's not. First of all, it's not going to happen, and it wouldn't mean anything because all it would mean is that the country is willing to give its gold away for free. It doesn't make any sense for a country to back its currency with gold, because then they can't conduct these wacky monetary policies. They can't issue debt. China would never do it. When people tell you China's going to gold back yuan, that's lunacy. They just announced this week they're going to issue more debt. They're lowering the bank requirements so they can issue more credit. Any country that's interested in issuing debt like China would never, ever, ever back their currency with gold. They may accumulate gold, but that's different. That's just like they're accumulating assets because they know they have a lot of debt. I mean, it's like you go out and you buy, you have $50,000 in credit card debt and you have like a gold coin. Well, that's not going to help. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't mean that your finances are backed by gold. All right, what else we got? Gold reserves excluding hoarders. Uranium and oil. Yeah, oil, that's right. They're mining, yes. Uranium, oil, and now gold. Significant amounts of gold. All right, everyone. Well, tomorrow I will be online again at 8 o'clock. I hope tonight was a little late, but 8 o'clock each night, Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, and then it gets loaded up after, and you can check it out. Go to Smaulgld.com, subscribe there, check out the charts there. At the end of each video the next day, I load it up, and I add the charts that we looked at tonight, tomorrow morning. Then you can see them better on Smaulgld.com. Also on Minds, Twitter, Gab AI, Facebook, Google+, but mostly Smaulgld.com and also on BitChute. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.